Welcome to the Wicket.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Arab News' very own cricketing podcast, The Wicket. I'm your host, Brian Murgatroyd, and in this episode, it's one with a difference, as coming up we speak with David White, the CEO of the UAE's own T20 franchise league, the DP World ILT20. We caught up with David just over 5 months since the conclusion of Season 2 of the tournament and just over 6 months away from Season 3, and we discussed the past and the future, including what we can expect from that next edition that's set to get underway in January 2025. It's a fascinating chat and I hope you enjoy it. David, thanks so much for being with us. And as we sit here in the boardroom at Dubai Sports City, just over 6 months away from Season 3 of DP World ILT20, how do you assess Season 2, which was your first as CEO of the league?
Hello, Brian. I'm delighted to be here and really excited to talk to you 6 months out. Season 2, we were delighted, and I was personally delighted with the performance. I think we had a 300% increase in crowds. Our TV viewership was 348 million unique viewers, and talking to the teams, talking to everyone, it was a big success, and I think a step up on Season 1 across the board.
The increase in crowds from Season 1 was a noticeable component, and on that basis, what have you and your staff done to try and get those fans and more besides back in 2025?
It was the key focus area from a marketing point of view. It was done on a number of fronts, really. Firstly, we made a conscious effort to engage with the cricket community. So schools, clubs, academies, and there's a large number of people that play cricket in the UAE. So engaging with them, getting them to come along to the game, was a big focus, and also supporting the many thousands of workers that come and work in Dubai. They come in not only Dubai but the wider UAE. It's fantastic that we can give an opportunity to bring them in and enjoy cricket as well. They're big cricket fans from Dubai, India, Bangladesh, so great to have them along as well.
And so keeping them is going to be a key component of what you do then?
Oh, I think that, getting that connection with those people and growing that fan base is key for us. A big focus for Season 3 is going to be that connection with the community across a wide group of people in the UAE. As we know, it's an exciting array of people that live in the UAE, and just connecting with them all is a big challenge. There's no doubt that there's a lot for people to do in the UAE, a lot of options, but we want to make, in January and February an exciting time, and want those people to know that during that time of the year they can come and watch some high quality cricket.
Now, one of the key innovations in Season 2 was the introduction of the Super Sub. Who has assessed whether it was a failure or a success, and whether it will be retained for Season 3?
Yeah, we've done an internal review and also talked to the teams about it. And I think on balance it was positive. Quite a lot of debate, as we know, in the IPL and that as well, and that's good. But I think that on balance it was successful, and we're almost certainly going to be retaining that for Season 3.
When will a decision be made on that?
I think in the next month or two we'll make that decision.
And one argument, I guess, against the Super Sub, given the time when you and I are speaking now, just after the T20 World Cup in the Caribbean and the USA, is that such a thing doesn't exist in ICC events. So on that basis, if players are trying to get ready for such events, can you understand why people may question the purpose of the Super Sub?
I think the great thing about the leagues is it's an opportunity to innovate and do things that are outside the norm, and I think this is one of the great things. And I think innovation's exciting. It keeps the game moving forward, and in particular in the T20 format, which has been so successful over a number of years now, attracting new audiences and new crowds. I think it's important that we do innovate and we keep people excited.
Also, it was argued it removed the need for all-rounders to balance lineups. Can you understand that criticism?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I'm a purist. I get that debate. It's an interesting situation, but on balance, we thought it was successful, and we'll almost certainly be trying it again next year.
As for UAE players, will it still be the case of 4 in each team's squad and 2 in the starting 11 for season 3?
Yes, we're maintaining that. We're delighted with the performance of the UAE players, and after the DP World ALT20, they went on to win the ACC Premier Cup in Oman and have now qualified for the first time in 8 years for the main Asia Cup in 2025. So we think a big part of that is the experience and performances that the players have received at ILT20. And there's no doubt that this is going to be a key plank in the high performance program for UAE cricket going forward. And, a number of young players are really stepping up now, and it's really exciting. And I think the UAE is going to be a force within in the future.
Well, I guess connected with the UAE players and coming back to the issue of the super sub, has any thought been given to retaining it but using that spot for an associate or a UAE player, given developing the game in the UAE has always been a key component of ILT20?
I know that that's some school of thought. No decision has been made, but it's an interesting concept.
And continuing the theme of UAE players, will there be a draft for them as there was ahead of season 2?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've had our retention has concluded, and most teams or all teams have maintained at least 2 players. So we'll be having a draft again at the end of the development tournament. The ILT development tournament will be held between the 5th and 15th of October, and soon after that we'll be having another draft. But that is a real focus for us and almost kickstart the season, launches the season for us.
Well, coming back to the concept of the draft that you mentioned there, the list of players retained by the 6 franchises went out in the 3rd week of June. Can we expect an overseas draft for teams to fill out their rosters? And if so, when might that be?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. So at the end of the 3rd season, because teams had the ability to contract for 3 years players, we're going to review the model and consult with teams, commercial partners, and look at the contracting model going forward. So nothing's off the table at this stage.
But in terms of season 3 itself, will there be a draft before?
No, there's no draft for season 3. But like I said, so season 3, the current contracting model will conclude at the end of that, and then we'll reassess where we go from after that.
There was speculation at the end of season 2 that November 2024 was a possibility as a window for this upcoming edition, as that would avoid clashing with Big Bash League in Australia, New Zealand's Super Smash, the Bangladesh Premier League, South Africa competition, the SA20. Why was it decided in the end to stick with January, February as the window?
We consulted our stakeholders and in particular commercial partners who are very comfortable with the current window. It's been very successful for the broadcasters, and crowds were great. So we felt that time of the year, with the fantastic weather we have in the UAE as well, it worked well. In saying that, nothing is off the table in the future. We'll keep reassessing as we go forward. And I think it's a really interesting time for world cricket. And I know there's a meeting at Lord's with representatives around the globe of trying to get some alignment with the international program and the leagues. And something that we're conscious of, and something that we'll be interested in talking to member boards and other leagues about in the future to get alignment and a dedicated window for our league. So we're going into our 3rd year. We're new. It's a new league. We're establishing ourselves. The first 2 years are very successful. We're very confident that season 3 is going to be as successful. But we want to be nimble. We want to keep an open mind to things in the future to work out what works best for us.
Well, it was announced earlier this year that ILT20 would start on the 11th of January 2025. Is that still the case, or has there been any change of that plan? And when do you envisage the fixtures for season 3 to be announced?
So, yes, we're starting on the 11th of January and the final on Sunday, the 9th of February, which is a week earlier than the year before, basically to accommodate the Champions Trophy, which will give a 10-day window for players to go and prepare with their national teams. In terms of the schedule, we're hopeful to have it out by hopefully the end of August.
And in terms of the ICC Champions Trophy, you mentioned the fact that the ILT20 butts up against it to an extent. Last season there were 6 double headers. In season 1 there were 5 double headers. Can we expect more this season, just to concertina the schedule a little bit, or will they strictly be a weekend thing?
No, so the window is exactly the same as season 2, so there'll be 6 double headers played in the weekends.
Last season there were plenty of comings and goings of players between the leagues, particularly SA20 coming here and vice versa. And it could be argued it made it very tough to track who was playing for whom and when. What's your view on that traffic? And do you think we can expect something similar this season?
No, there won't be as much traffic because the window is almost identical with the South African League. There might be some movement from Australian players, which the Big Bash finishes earlier, but there won't be the same level of movement.
Yes, for listeners who are curious, SA20 is due to start on January the 9th and end on February the 8th. The BBL in Australia, that hasn't announced a start date as yet, but it's likely to end around the 26th of January. And the PSL, that's been shifted to the other side of the Champions Trophy, so it'll go up against the IPL now. The PSL is due to take place from April the 7th to May the 20th, with the Champions Trophy in February and March of 2025. Now, David, Season 2 of the tournament, the DP World ILT20, was granted List A status by the ICC, and it means the ILT20 is one of only 2 associate-based T20 tournaments with that status, along with Major League Cricket. It means the players' efforts in the tournament count towards their overall T20 statistics, which wasn't the case in Season 1, of course. How important was it to secure that status for ILT20?
Oh, it's massively important. You know, players are playing in a competition, a very high-class competition with up to 9 overseas players and very good UAE players as well. So the standard's very high. So it was logical to grant List A status, but it was a very, very key milestone for this league.
And with so many other leagues taking place in the same window of January and February, that was important, I guess, to attract players. But how confident are you that the franchises will be able to sign and retain the best players, given all those other leagues that are taking place at the same time?
We've already published the retained players for this year, and we're delighted with the quality, quite outstanding. And anecdotally, so the recruitment period has started now, and we're hearing very positive things about the quality of players who will be playing in Season 3.
What do you see as the main selling points of ILT20 in comparison to those other leagues?
What I hear from the players is the weather's fantastic here this time of year. The facilities are very good, both on and off the field. The training facilities are very good. And the big plus for a lot of the overseas players in particular is the fact that they can bring their families because there's not a lot of movement in terms of transport. They're in one hotel, beautiful hotels, and they travel, no more than an hour to venues, so they can have their families here with them for a month. They don't have to fly anywhere, and it is logistically very easy and a fantastic place to be in the month of January and February.
Now, the Caribbean Premier League went public earlier this year in saying it had worked with the England and Wales Cricket Board to ensure there was no clash between CPL and the 100, and it advocated more such conversations so that everyone could get the players they wanted when they wanted them, as well as securing an opportunity to showcase their tournament without too much else going on alongside it. Do you advocate that sort of approach? And have you been in contact with other leagues to try and ensure similar cooperation?
Well, for the CPL in England, it's very easy because there's very few countries that play in that Northern Hemisphere window. So the Southern Hemisphere, as we know, has got so much cricket. And I would say probably 80% or 90% of global cricket. So it's not quite as easy to arrange the calendars as such. But in saying that, like I said before, I think that going forward, cricket is changing. This is a changing time for the game. bilateral cricket, the advent of more leagues, and now as well having one annual ICC event makes a calendar very congested. So I think that people will be working closer together to ensure that we do have a calendar that makes sense and works for not only the franchises, the international boards, but also the players as well. But I think we've got to be realistic to understand that, in particular in the Southern Hemisphere, and our window also with the UAE, which is January, February, is basically the Southern Hemisphere window as well. There's so much cricket played in that window that there is logically going to be some clashes.
Of course, you've been on both sides of the fence with New Zealand Cricket as former CEO there, and now you're in charge of a franchise league. Where do you see the game in 5 or 10 years' time? Do you worry that T20 cricket will actually cannibalise the whole game, the franchise tournaments, or do you see a continuation of international cricket, bilateral cricket alongside it?
Well, firstly, as a cricket person and a cricket administrator, and I've been involved in it all my life, it is amazing and fantastic that there is so much interest in cricket. And the game has evolved. And, it's gone from test to the Packer situation with the ODIs, and now the advent of T20 cricket a number of years ago has been amazing for cricket. And the amount of money that has been injected into the game is incredible. And so cricket's in a very healthy place. And wouldn't you want to be a cricketer at the moment? So not only international cricketers are making a good living now, but also first-class cricketers are making a fantastic living. And you look at the days gone by, English county cricketers that had to go on the unemployment benefit during the winter, and now there is so much opportunity for cricketers to ply their trade around the world. It's got to be a great thing. We're going through a period of alignment where I think ultimately the market forces will determine what the calendar is. So I think that over the next few years it's going to be interesting to see how bilateral cricket evolves in conjunction with the annual ICC event and where the leagues fit in as well. But I think the future is very exciting, and I'm really excited about the future of the DP World ILT20. I think it's going to be one of the big leagues that will be here for a long time to come. And whilst we're not talking about expansion at the moment or anything, but I see it playing a major role in cricket and the development of cricket in the Middle East in the future.
I was going to ask you about expansion actually, because long term, I'm wondering, are there any plans to increase the number of franchises from the current mark of 6?
No, not at the moment. I think it's very important that we focus on consolidation and make it sustainable here. But I think that the future is really exciting in terms of expansion into the Middle East. And that's my personal view. There's nothing formally that's been done or anything, but I just think that logically that's the way it's going to go in the future. So our role and my role is to make sure that DP World ILT20 is a fantastic league that grows. It adds value to commercial partners, to the region, and is an exciting place for the players to play.
Well, the ICC last year announced a cap of 4 overseas players and a requirement for 7 locals in any new league. That obviously doesn't apply to already existent leagues like DP World ILT20, Major League Cricket in the USA, or Global T20 in Canada. But there was a note that existing leagues would have to comply within a, quote, reasonable period of time. What's your understanding of what that time frame is? And do you believe progress is being made in that regard? Obviously, we were talking a little earlier about the number of UAE players in a starting lineup and a squad. Would you, for example, expect to see 3 UAE players in a starting 11 anytime soon?
I think the focus has got to be on development of UAE players. And if we haven't got more than 2 players playing in the future, I think we will be very disappointed. I think that that's naturally going to occur anyway, regardless of the numbers restrictions. But also the great thing about DP World ILT20 is that it is one league that introduces associate players as well. We've had players from Scotland, Ireland, the Netherlands playing as well. And I'd like to think in the future there'll be players from, the Middle East and the likes of Nepal, etc., that will play in it. And I think it's slightly different to some of the other leagues where it is seen as an opportunity to bring in developing players and from other countries as well. And I think that stands us slightly apart from the other leagues.
I was going to ask you about that actually, because obviously that ICC regulation represents a blow to UAE neighbours like Oman, like Saudi Arabia, for example, if they had any intention of launching their own leagues. Do you envisage any cooperation with those sorts of countries to assist their cricket development, maybe even including franchises from those countries in future editions, or is your sole focus the UAE and what happens on these shores?
No, I know that the management from the Emirates Cricket Board work very closely with the other countries in the Middle East, and I think that they will have a part to play in the future as well.
From a personal perspective, David, to wrap things up, as you get ready for season 3 of DP World ILT20, how have you found the switch from being a CEO of New Zealand cricket to coming to the UAE last year to head up this franchise league? Has anything surprised you, pleased you, disappointed you, and are you in the league where you want to be at the moment?
I think the things that have surprised me, the quality of cricket in the UAE, and the depth of talent and the number of players. I think the potential is huge, and their passion for the game is amazing. So that's been a really pleasant surprise. I guess when you're in your member role, you don't focus so much on the associate cricket nations, but there's a lot of talent out there, and I think that you'll see even from the T20 World Cup that's just been held in the USA and also the Caribbean that there's some good cricketers coming through the associates, so that's been really, really, really pleasant. I think also the thing that has been really pleasing is the quality of facilities here. 3 very good stadiums and great quality of pitches, but also the quality of practice pitches. And actually, the number of high quality cricket grounds around the UAE is staggering. It is staggering. I could not believe how many great facilities there are, and there are people playing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The passion for cricket is huge. So it's been a nice shift for me. I did 12 years at New Zealand cricket, and it was time for me to move on. But I'm really enjoying being on the other side of the fence, if you like, and in an area of the game that is growing and going to have a big influence on cricket in the future. So glad to be part of it.
David White, CEO of the DP World ILT20, thanks so much for joining us here at the Wicket. It's been a pleasure to chat with you, and we look forward to the upcoming season 3 of the tournament.
Thank you, and thank you very much for your support.
David White, the CEO of the DP World ILT20, with some fascinating insights into what's to come with the 3rd edition of the Gulf region's very own major T20 franchise tournament. Well, that's all from this episode of The Wicket. We'll be back soon with more cricket chat from the Gulf region, Asia and worldwide. As ever, please don't forget to like, subscribe and comment on what you've heard wherever you get your podcast. For now then, this is Brian Murgatroyd saying thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to your company next time.